just going to show you some steps that I do, and I do all of these steps before I bake. So right now, I am creasing, so that means I've neutralized my kit, and my next thing that I'm going to go to is creasing, and I use this beautiful mix that Jackie's made for me. And I just kind of put a dab in there, and I move it around with a paintbrush. And I do this on all of the limbs, of course, the face, the belly plate. And it's just a small dab that I move with a paintbrush. As you can see, I just move my paint around. I don't paint really the whole line. See, like right there, the right way or the wrong way. This is just what works for me. It's the neatest and the cleanest way. And yeah, so it's crazy. At this part of my reborning, I do 4 different things, and then I bake. I find this cuts time in my reborning length, and then actually I don't see a reason to bake in between each of these steps, because it's not like I'm doing a yellow wash and then I'm going to do a pink wash or something. I'm just doing 4 different kinds of things, and they all kind of coincide with each other. So why not just do them all and then bake them? Obviously, you know, the creasing dries before I get on to the next thing. And then yeah, so here is the leg I creased. Looks pretty good. And then I'm going to show you it with the uncreased leg, and you can see how much life the creasing already has given it. And now my next thing I do is I do veining. Veining is just kind of one of those things that you need to really just like have fun with. There is no right or wrong way to do your veins. Obviously underneath our skin layer, and isn't that crazy how the lighting just changed, but whatever. All under our skin layer. So this is one of those things, like, sky's the limit really with designs. This is going to be, I'm making this baby for, actually making twin and A for a girl, first reborns, they're a set of twins. So I kind of like to give, like, this kit a lot more veins than I normally would, especially with, like, new moms. It seems like, you know, they're really looking for the veins. Here, too, just kind of, like, go with, like, Jackie always says she visualizes, she sees it before she draws, and, like, this is how I see it. I kind of make, like, an M shape on what I do on one side to the other, because it's, like, really hard to do, but they are very similar. And I know they look dark right now. Don't be scared. I do blend it a little bit, as you can see, but I'm going to be doing a lot more layers over this. These are kind of like my base layers, and then I'll start working in with my warming up layer tones. And then I just take the veins and I connect them all around, and I draw to make all these squiggly lines. And especially like with bald babies, I have a lot more veining on the back of the head. But this doll's going to have painted hair, so actually the mom probably won't even see these veins on the back of his head. But yeah, it's just one of those things, you know. You could never have too many, or just dab it off. And yeah, so how do you guys like this voiceover? I learned it from Jackie. But now I take the same vein color and I do across the nose of the bridge and into like the creasing of the eye to give that, I guess it's like a blue undertone because it's kind of like a thinning area. I also do this around the nose, as you can see, and then I dab it off and I do it at the sides of the mouth, down to the chin. Oh, I also take my veins when I make that M. You guys saw that. It comes down like past the ears. So then on the hands here, I do the blue in the center of the hand. And then I just, you know, put my veins where I feel like the veins on each limb, because I'm not that good at duplicating my work. But just so you guys have like an idea of where I place veins. And Jackie does it different too. We actually do everything very different. It's pretty funny. So same here with the foot. I'm going to put the blue in the center. And then like I said, this has not been baked. Since the creasing, it's not been baked. The veining, it's not been baked. And Jack, I'm recording a voiceover. She's turned the light off on me in the room. So I think it's weird to do a voiceover because, you know, I normally am talking while I'm doing this. But as you can see, in many different ways I do my veins, and then I just blot it off. And I do veins, you know, on top of the foot and around the ankles, where I really feel it's necessary. There's no rules on this. If you look at your body, there's veins everywhere. And then we're going to move on to the next step. Yeah, I dropped my brush right there. I was recording all weird. I put a little bit of this yellowy orange mixture on the nose and the edges of the eyes, and I dab it off. And then I'm going to get into my mottling, actually. You can see this baby's lips already has coloring because when I do the creasing, I actually do like a base lip of the coloring. So here's my mottling. I try to keep it pretty consistent. When I see it's getting lighter, I put more paint on here. And I just dab, dab, dab away with this sponge that I make Jackie make all my mottling sponges because she does it the best. I know. I'm awful. And then here we go. Oh, look at that. Spots of paint. I hate that when that happens. I have to clean that off. You know, I guess I just caught a piece of paint that wasn't mixed in well. So irritating. But anyways, we'll just move on. So I'm putting the mottling over the veins that, you know, have not been baked. They won't come off by doing this. They're pretty set there. So we're going to move on. Moving on to the face. I do mottling everywhere. I do not do mottling on the ears. I don't know why. I feel like when I do mottling on the ears, and by the time I get to the blushing, you're not even going to see it anyways. So, I don't model the ears. Oh, look right there. Got paint again. So I'm like, Jesus. But anyway, so I try to keep it very even and consistent. And it looks frightening right now, but keep in mind, I will be adding layers on top of this. But as you can see with like this little bit of work, it's already given the kit so much life. So much more life. I mean, obviously I can't be like, oh, you're done. And I carry the mottling through the back of the head. I know people have said that sometimes they've had some artists that don't do that. I do the same details throughout all of my work. And then as you saw, I just blotted the cheek because I felt like the mottling was a little dark there. So if you're doing it and you feel like it's dark, you can just take your sponge and kind of blot it over. And yeah, so everywhere it gets mottling. Just set that there, and I'm like, okay, you don't think it's, sometimes like I feel like if I do that and it's not dark enough the first layer, I will do like a second layer before I bake. But when I did this doll, I felt like I did a really good coverage of the mottling. She'll probably get a second layer. I don't know if it's a she or he actually, a second layer later, but we'll see. So yeah, now that I've done all this, I'm ready to bake. So I've done these 4 steps and we're off to baking.
Okay, now I have my baby's arms and legs in this Farberware convection. I just purchased this today at Walmart, paid about $39 for it. I'm baking at 260 to 265 for 8 minutes. The other parts that I just took out of the oven are cured. I tested the paints with a Q-tip, a wet Q-tip, and none of the paint came off. So this seems to be working very, very well. I also have a heat gun, but I see that this seems to be much easier and a bit faster to get more of the parts of the doll cured quickly. Alright, I am doing a layer of color. Special I'm doing for this. To show you that I am still working away. Got kind of special plans for this baby, so I've got special colors that I'm working on. Plans. And hopefully it works out. If it doesn't, then I can go get me some of that acetone, 100%, and start over. Anyways, I just want to show you that his eye is doing the painting. And then I'm working away. It's been kind of fun. Just have to stop every so bit because I can actually only sit for so long due to my lovely back issues. Anyways, I'll get back to you later and let you know what's going on next. Bye-bye.
You can look at the doll from several angles to find your brow bone. It always kind of sticks up from the sculpt, so you can see it's casting a shadow right here at the temple and kind of goes into the crease under her nose, or is flowing into her nose. And what I've done so far, if you can see it at all, is I've started very lightly outlining that brow bone. I also went back and looked at the prototype. This is also a good way to determine where the eyebrows fall. So I have a very light kind of connect the dots for where the brow bone is going to be. So I want to illustrate, I just want to get that foundation so I can continue to build on it later. I actually typically root my eyebrows because painting them is very tedious. But it is very common to paint eyebrows, so we might as well. Alright, I don't know if you can see that at all, but that's our bottom eyebrow line. So now I'm going to go back over it, making that arrow shape as we were talking about. I'm going to meet it up with lines on top. I have to reload. And if the paint is runny, it's not going to stay in place. Now I have not added a sealant to this doll yet. So I'm just painting right on the painted vinyl without anything else in place. Okay, so that's very slowly starting to fill in. So the eyebrows need to be as fine as hairs. If any of your paint strokes got too thick, and make those lines thinner. So this is what I would consider to be the first layer. They're very faint, just really giving you an idea of where the eyebrows are going to be. So I have cured the first layer. This is heat set paint, so it's baked for 9 minutes at 250 degrees. And now I'm going in and adding the second layer. So as you can see, it's starting to become more prominent. The strokes I'm doing at this point is trying to fill in where I see blank spots and also extend the brows outward a little bit so that looks more like individual strands of hair. So a few slow and steady passes will take the waves and or curls out of your mohair. If it's already straight, you can skip this step. The second trick for rooting a loop is to make your lock long. So this is an infant that I'm rooting, and in general I only need really this much hair sticking out of the scalp, but because I'm rooting to the top of the mohair, so I have a nice long lock to root. Last but not least, my third trick to rooting a loop is to make your lock smaller than what you would normally use for other rooting methods. This allows you to find your loops more easily, and it helps you not to get too tangled up in what you're doing. Alright, so I'm going to find the middle of this hair. I'm going to fold it in half, and I actually like to twist it a half turn and hold that twist between my fingers. That way I can keep my loops crisp and neat as I'm rooting. This is a 42 gauge crown needle, so it's a fairly tiny needle. Has one barb on each corner for 3 total. Some of the barbs are lower than the others. I don't know if we'll be able to catch this on the film. Maybe not. But there's one barb that sits really close to the tip of the needle. Not either of those two. That guy on the left. So what I'm going to want to do while I'm rooting my loop is to actually put my lowest barb facing to my right. So instead of putting it on the bottom, I'm going to put it to the side, because what I need it to do is to catch the end of my loop. Okay, so the barb's on the side so that it's catching the loop. And this helps to force that loop down into the vinyl. We're getting kind of microscopic here, so I apologize if it's not clear on the video. Okay, so those are the 3 tricks to rooting the loop. You need straight hair, you need long hair, and You want to hold less than you normally would so you don't get too tangled up. Okay, so with my bar facing to the right, I'm hooking each hair in my loop and pushing it down into the vinyl. If you end up with a few scragglers that are just short hairs from your lock or something that got pulled out, feel free to just get rid of those. One thing that I do when I'm rooting a loop is I'll sort of scrape the needle across the lock to separate out more loops. And the more frayed my loops are, the better, because I can see each one individually, hook them to my needle, and push them down in the vinyl. And it's up to you whether you want to grab 1 loop or 2 loops or 5 loops or whatever. You have complete control over how much hair you grab and where you put it. Okay. When I'm rooting my loops, that's just so fun to say, what I like to do is hook the hair, push it down into the vinyl, and while the needle's still somewhere in the hole, pull away the rest of the lock. I have a tendency to hold my hair too tight, and when I pull the rest of the lock away, I have a tendency to yank back out the hair I just rooted. So doing that while the needle is still in the hole will prevent you from doing that. When you're rooting a loop, you have control over how much hair you grab and where you put it. So this is one of my premium quality dolls, so I'm spacing the hair out a little more than I would for a masterpiece quality doll. Trying to stagger the hairs as much as possible as we go. And you might be able to see my rooting plan. I did that in pencil, Prismacolor, which I like quite a lot better than chalk. It doesn't rub off as easily, but it does rub off eventually, so I don't have to worry about making my lines very neat. Okay, and that is how it works. Part of the reason why you need long hair is not only because you're grabbing it from the middle, but because as you go, your loops kind of get bigger and bigger. The more you spread them out, the easier they are to see. And if your hair is too short, the more you pull out that loop, the less likely you are to be able to hold on to it, because you're just going to pull the hair clean out of the lock and you won't be able to grab it. So the tension on the hair is key. Twisting the base of your loop will help you to maintain the tension you need to get it into the hair. Alright, so it looks like we're still in focus, so I'm just going to sit here and quietly root some more loops. We have full legs instead of jointed legs. So the legs are part of the body. There's nothing, unlike the arms, where the body is enclosed. So that means I need to put the legs on before I can start fully stuffing the body, or else stuff's just gonna pour out the bottom. Okay, we have string, so I'm gonna tie a nice tight knot. Okay, so the knot we're gonna make a loop that's right over left. And our next loop is going to be left over right. And then before we tighten it down, we just want to make sure it's correct. So what you would want to see is that these are going the same way. So this one's coming from out of the loop. This one's coming out of the loop. On this end, this one's going under the loop. This one's going under the loop. If they're not parallel like that, then you haven't quite gotten your knot, so just keep redoing that second loop until it's correct. Now we're going to tighten those down on top of each other, and we don't have to worry about our leg coming out. Okay, so we've got the legs attached to the body. Now we can work on the stuffing for the body. So Elizabeth has these silicone inserts. So we need... Okay, so I want to make sure I still have polyfill down in the crotch area, because the silicone inserts aren't going to cover that. This is a really tight opening for the neck. I'm barely able to get my hand into it. Okay, so this bottom area is now covered in the extra fine polyfill. So this is softer than the stuff we were putting in the limbs. Now I'm going to add one insert to the belly. I fold it to get it in there. This is so tight. And I want it actually up against the cloth body because it's there to feel squishy. And if I bury it under polyfill, then I lose that squishiness. So we want it right on top. Push it as far down as it'll go. And now I'm going to start adding back in that stuffing material in between those two inserts. So here's the front one, here's the back one. We're going to fill the space in between. In the cloth body, it's nice to fluff your polyfill, so that just makes it a lot softer. It will compress eventually, so I always put in some extra. We just want it to go in nice and soft. Okay. So now that I've created some space in here, we're now ready to add the glass beads to the cloth body. Alright, so we've got the glass beads in between the silicone inserts, which are sitting on top of polyfill. So I'm going to take little pieces of polyfill and fill in the space around all that weighting stuff. But again, I don't want the polyfill to be between the body and the silicone inserts because those are there for the squishiness. I'm going to put on my glove because these joints are always scratching me up. They're so sharp on the inside. Alright, workers' comp here. So I'm getting it down the side because that's where we don't currently have anything. You don't want your customer coming in contact with glass beads, so you never want the glass bead sock to be just right up against the body. Well, there's a first time for everything, and this is my first time working with these Reborn bodies, and it's looking like we can only do front inserts with the silicone. The problem is the baby fat inserts are very domed, and the back is flat. So I can't put a dome thing on a flat back. It's not gonna lay right, so I'll just refund the cost of that second insert because it's gonna throw things off too much. That's okay, live and learn. Okay, so I'm still working in the stuffing. I overstuff my bodies because, as I said, it's gonna compress over time. So my first few dolls were, perfectly stuffed when I first finished them, and then 3 months later, they were flopping all over the place because the filling settled. And I had to go back and take the heads off and stuff them again. So now I just fill it all the way. So when that 3 months passes, instead of becoming loose, they're just gonna go down to the right size. Okay. So now we're going to add that last little bit of glass beads for that extra floppy baby body. So I am super limited on space with this body, but I'm still going to attempt to stuff a little bit more weighty material in the top because that helps to give it the floppy newborn baby sensation. I'm really pushing it here. Okay, I think that's gonna work. We're gonna add our arms. I'm gonna be mindful of the posing. Okay. So for a bent arm, you usually want it to just lay across the stomach as opposed to sticking straight up. So we'll get our position there and tie a nice knot. Good and tight, and again. Right over left. Left over right. Make sure I've got a good knot. Good, good, good. And I'll tighten them both down. That's not going anywhere. In spite of the fact that this body came with ties, strings, I always use cable ties for my head. Okay, I'm gonna latch the tie. Okay, I'm gonna double check that everything is in there. Add a little bit more around the collar. Okay. Just looking to see I don't see any bare stockings. I think that's bare stocking. Just gonna cover that up. And I want there to be a layer of polyfill between the glass beads and the collector. Gonna set our head on here. Make sure you get the whole flange in there. Okay, the cable tie should cover the neck ring. Okay. And the neck ring is there so that you can turn the head. All right. It's a pretty dense little lady. Okay, so one thing you don't want is for the baby to be too dense. So the first time that I stuffed her, she was just sitting straight up, like perfect posture, which is great for anybody except an infant. So I wanted her to have a little bit more of that floppy baby